Welcome to Gospel Truth with Andrew Wommack, a teaching ministry that focuses on God's unconditional love and grace.
Your teaching has revolutionized my life.
It set me on course for where I'm going for the rest of my life.
So thank you, Andrew, for all you've done for me.
And now, here's Andrew.
Welcome to our Wednesday's broadcast of the Gospel Truth. Today I'm continuing to teach through the life of Joseph, and I've got a teaching entitled Lessons from the Life of Joseph, and my staff put together a brief summary. This is just a little booklet that is a brief summary of the whole teaching that I'm doing. This is a free gift to you, and then we also have CDs and DVDs that were taken from a television program, and then we have USBs that were actually has the audio and the video on it. And I encourage you to please get these materials. I've already gone through so much of this that there's no way I can go back and summarize everything that I've said. And we're right in the middle of when Joseph is beginning to reveal his true identity to his brothers. And there's just so many things here. And there's so many misconceptions about Joseph. I would say that one of the biggest misconceptions about Joseph and the way he treated his brothers, people think that Joseph did this out of bitterness, out of unforgiveness, and he was trying to hurt his brothers as much as they had hurt him. I disagree with that 100%. I spent some time on that yesterday. It says specifically that he remembered his dreams, and that's the reason he said, "You are spies," and began to accuse them. It wasn't because he remembered their treatment of him. It was his dreams. And I've made this point, I'm not going to go back and spend a lot of time on this, but it was Joseph trying to bring them, he was trying to break his brothers because they were wicked men. They had committed murder. They had murdered hundreds of people. They had committed incest. One of them, the oldest brother, Reuben, had committed incest with his father's wife. Judah had committed incest with his own daughter-in-law, and she got pregnant and had twins by him. I mean, these were evil men. And they needed to come to the end of themselves, and they needed to humble themselves. So I believe that Joseph was doing these things because he knew God had sent him not only to preserve their life through stockpiling the food and then selling it back to people, but it was also to bring these brothers to a place of humility that they had not been at. And he was breaking them and bringing them to the end of themselves. So Anyway, I went through all of this yesterday, but the backstory is that they came to buy food. He accused them of being spies. They said, "No, we aren't spies." And so he locked them up for 3 days. Finally, he came back and said, "I'm a God-fearing man. I'm going to let you go." But he kept Simeon, one of those that had killed hundreds of people in the city of Shechem, and he kept him in prison and sent the other 9 brothers back home. And when they got home, Jacob, their father, was just terrified at thinking that he had to send Benjamin, but Joseph had told them that unless you bring back this younger brother who you told me about, then I'm going to consider you to be spies, and Simeon would have stayed in prison forever. And so finally, when the food ran out, Jacob was forced to admit that they had to get food, and he allowed these brothers to take Benjamin back. But man, it was against his protest. They guaranteed, one of them, Reuben, even said that you can kill my 2 sons if I don't return with Benjamin. Judah came out and said that I will guarantee his safety, and if he doesn't come back, then I'll bear the shame and the reproach of this and all of my descendants. And so they were making these promises. Jacob finally let them go, and when they came and Joseph saw Benjamin, the youngest son, he said, "Today you're going to eat at my home." And so he stayed there continuing to do his job, selling things, but he sent his brothers to his house. And I'm sure that, man, they saw this palace. Joseph was the second most powerful man in the world. And they saw all of this, and they had already been accused of being spies. They had their money put back in their sacks. They were afraid that they were going to be accused of stealing money from Joseph now. And man, they were just trembling. Let me read some of this to you out of Genesis chapter 43. And it says in verse 17, "And the men did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house, And the men were afraid. This is talking about Joseph's brethren were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, because the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time are we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us for bondmen and our asses. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house, and said, O sir, we came indeed down at the first to buy food, and it came to pass when we came to the inn that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of the sack, our money in full weight, and we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hands to buy food. We cannot tell who put our money in our sacks. So basically, they were coming clean. They finally humbled themselves. They were telling the truth, thinking that maybe this would avoid them being accused of thievery and things like this. And look at the steward of Joseph's house. In verse 23, he said, Peace be unto you, fear not, your God and the God of your fathers hath given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money. And he brought Simeon out to them. Simeon had been held captive the very first time they went down, and so he had been in prison during this time, and he brought Simeon out. So all of the brothers were reunited. And this steward told him, says, I'm the one that put the money in your sack's mouth. Boy, there is no telling what they thought now. This wasn't a mistake. Matter of fact, Jacob had even said maybe it was an oversight, that it was just some kind of a mistake. Now they know it wasn't a mistake, and that the steward of Joseph's house had put their money back in their sack. I can just imagine what must have been going through their mind, like, what is happening? Here they are from their standpoint, nobodies. Joseph has singled them out, accused them of spies, now put their money back in their sack, and now they're brought to his house for a feast. Man, their minds must have been going 90 to nothing trying to figure out what is happening. And so look at this in verse 24. It says, the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their asses provender, and they made ready. The present against Joseph came at noon, for they had heard that they should eat bread with him. And so this present is the present that Jacob had sent, all of these dates and figs and the produce of Canaan, and he sent those as a gift to Joseph. And then in verse 26, and it says, and Joseph came home. They brought him the present which was in their hand to the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth. This is the third time now that they have bowed themselves to the earth, and it's going to happen again. Joseph's dream about his brothers bowing down to him had come to pass. It was coming to pass, and it wasn't just fulfilled with the physical act, but it was really when they finally broke and bowed their heart to him is when the dream was actually fulfilled. And so in verse 27 it says, and he asked them of their welfare and said, is your father well, the old man of whom ye spake, is he yet alive? And of course Joseph was asking about his father, but they didn't realize that. And they answered and said, thy servant our father is in good health. Now we find out that Jacob was 130 years old when he came into Egypt. And right here it says he was in good health. He lived to be 147 years old as we keep on reading. And so he lived 17 years after he went down and started living in Egypt. But at 130 years old, Jacob was still in good health. Man, that's awesome. And said, he is yet alive, and they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. And he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, this is talking about Joseph, his mother's son, and said, is this your younger brother of whom ye spake unto me? And they said, God be gracious unto thee, my son. And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn. The word bowels in the Old Testament is used the way we use our heart to describe the seat of our emotions. And so this is talking about that his heart did yearn upon his brethren, and he sought where to weep, and he entered into his chamber and wept there, and he washed his face and went out and refrained himself and said, set on bread. And so Joseph, again, this shows the love, the compassion that he had, especially towards his younger brother. This wasn't anger, it wasn't bitterness, it wasn't getting even, it wasn't revenge. I tell you, again, that just cheapens the whole story of Joseph when people interpret it that way. I tell you, Joseph was a great character that operated in a tremendous amount of integrity. And look at this in verse 32. And they set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which did eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians. You know, I mentioned this on Monday's broadcast just real briefly, but this shows that the Egyptians thought it was an abomination to even eat with a person who was a Hebrew. And Joseph was a Hebrew. This says volumes about the Pharaoh, about this man, how he would just put a person who was despised, for his ethnicity, and put him in the second most high position in the entire land. It shows a lot about Pharaoh. It also shows that there was a lot of prejudice among the people during the time. And it says something about Joseph, that even though he had to eat separate, he didn't make a big deal out of this. Again, I could spend a lot of time on this, but there are racial and religious and economic and all kinds of social different prejudices in our world today. And the average way that people deal with that is to sit there and say, you owe me respect. I believe it's just the opposite. That instead of us complaining and griping about it and being bitter about it, what you need to do is just earn respect. Joseph had been so faithful. He interpreted Pharaoh's dreams. He had been put in this position, and he was over all of these Egyptians. He was their master. He could have put them to death, and yet he allowed them to eat separate from him, and he didn't force and say, you shouldn't be treating me this way, and demand that they do all of those things. He just did what God gave him opportunity to do and earned respect. Tony Dungy, who is a black man, he's one of the Hall of Fame coaches in the NFL, and James Brown and Tony Dungy are good friends of mine. And I remember Tony Dungy talking about his father would not sit there and complain about the racial prejudice that was against them. That his father was unable to ride in the bus unless he sat at the back of the bus. And so rather than suffer that shame and rejection, he just chose to walk everywhere he went. And he told Tony, he said, don't sit there and complain about the problems that you have. You just earn people's respect. You go ahead and live a godly life. And when Tony finally won one of the Super Bowls and they were on the bus going to the White House, his father sat on the bus, on the front seat of the bus, and went to the White House and met the president and all of these things. And that happened because they maintained the right attitude. And yet there's many of other blacks. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't problems and prejudices, but there's many blacks that just sit there and have a chip on their shoulder and they're going to fight and gripe and complain. You are not going to be promoted the way that Joseph was, if that's your attitude. Here's Joseph, who was their master. He was over them, and yet they wouldn't eat with him because that was a social taboo, and he didn't gripe or complain about it. He just dealt with the situation and went on, and God promoted him. Man, there's a great lesson to learn from Joseph right here. And let me just also say that this isn't just racial. It's not based on ethnicity. Did you know when I was in the Army, because I witnessed to people, I took a stand for the Lord. They called me preacher. And I would go into a mess hall and sit down, and people would be sitting there. And when I sat down, they'd pick up their trays and they'd leave, and they'd just leave me by myself. I actually went about 6 or 8 weeks without one single person talking to me. They hated me because I had taken a stand, and I was rejected. And we had a race riot when I was in basic, and the blacks outnumbered the whites over 2-1, and they blocked the doors, and they took every single white in the barracks, and they beat their head on the concrete, and there's so much blood flowed, it clogged up the drain on this concrete floor, and it began to back up because so much blood had flowed. And did you know that I am the only white person in that entire barrack? I think there was 100 people in the barracks, 50 on each side, and probably 60 of them, 70 of them were blacks, and the rest of us were white. And anyway, I'm the only white guy who didn't get sent to the infirmary, and it's because the guy who was beating everybody up, he was a pimp in the world, and he was just this vicious guy. But I had witnessed to him. And it turned out his father was a Baptist preacher. And he knew that what he was doing wasn't right. And even though he was drunk and he started this riot and sent, I don't know, probably 30 or 40 white guys to the infirmary. When he came over, he grabbed me on my bunk, helped pick me up, and was going to beat me up the way he had everybody else. And he looked at me, and I believe that God reminded him that I'd testified to him, and he just threw me back on his bunk, fell over on his bunk, and it was over. And I'm the only guy that didn't get beat up. I'm saying this to say that it's not just, whites towards black. There's prejudice from blacks. There's prejudice from Hispanics. There's prejudice on people because of the way you talk, because of where you came from. There's all kinds of stuff. It's not the skin, it's just sin. That's what this friend of mine, E.W. Jackson, is always saying. And I've been a recipient of racial prejudice, and I've been hated and stuff. And yet, you know what? I'm not bitter, and I'm not angry. I'm just saying that there's a lesson to be learned here. Joseph was an abomination to the Egyptians, and yet he was second in command over all of Egypt because of his attitude and because he didn't let that get on the inside of him, and he didn't make an issue out of it. Boy, that's great. Again, I could probably talk about that much, much more. In verse 33, it says, "And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright." This is talking about when the brethren came into his house and they had them sit at tables. They had them sit according to their birthright. Look, that's what this is saying. They sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth, and the men marveled one at another. Now, if you aren't careful, you'll just skip over this and miss it. But here are these 11 brothers that are brought to Joseph's house, and Joseph seated them according to their firstborn, secondborn, third, fourth, fifth, all the way down till the 12th. They were all in their birth order, and they marveled at, how did Joseph know this? Now again, you could just skip over this and think it was coincidence, but it wasn't. Joseph had them seated. He recognized exactly who his brothers were and who was the firstborn, secondborn. And when he had them seated according to their birth order, they realized something was up. How was this happening? And the next verse says, "And he took and sent messes," this is talking about portions of food, "unto them from before him. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him." What this is signifying, they were not only seated according to their birth order, but then Benjamin was preferred above all of the others. 5 times as much food sent to him. And that's because Benjamin was the flesh and blood of Joseph, from the same father and mother. These other brothers were half-brothers. They were from different mothers. They were all the same father, but they were different mothers. So there was just a union. And plus, I believe that Benjamin wasn't involved in those brothers who tried to kill Joseph and eventually sold him into slavery. Benjamin was still at home. He was very young at the time that this happened to Joseph. And so Benjamin was not one of the other 10 brothers who had rejected Joseph and had caused all this. And so the way that he seated them according to their birth order, the way that he preferred Benjamin and sent him 5 times as much food as anybody else, man, that just grabbed their attention. They were looking at this and wondering what is going on. They knew that something was not normal. They didn't know exactly what was happening, but they knew that this was supernatural, really. It was not just normal, the things that were happening. And so in the 44th chapter, after they had eaten and made merry with Joseph, then it says that he dismissed them and gave them their grain that they wanted, and they headed for home. But Joseph, after they had left, he told his steward of his house, he says, "You put my cup, his golden cup, in the mouth of that youngest son, Benjamin, and you put it in the sack, at the top of the sack." And then he sent them away. And not long after they had departed, well, then this steward of the house came after them, and he accused them of stealing this golden cup that Joseph drank from. And the brothers got angry and said, "You're accusing us of stealing." Says, "How dare you do this?" And he says, "Man, if anybody has stolen anything, then let him just die right here. We'll allow him to be killed, and all the rest of us will become slaves to Joseph." And so the steward said, "All right, according to your word." And so he started at the oldest, Reuben, and then went to Simeon and Levi, Judah, right on down all the way to Benjamin's sack. And when he got to Benjamin's sack, there was Joseph's golden cup. And the men just cried out, "What has happened to us?" And the steward says, "I'm going to take Benjamin and make him a slave because he stole this." And they said, "No, you can't do that." And they explained how that they had promised the father that they would bring Benjamin back. So they all put all of their sacks back together. They laded all of their animals and headed back to Egypt to try and deal with this situation. And so they all came back to Joseph's house. And man, I'm running short of time here today. I'm not sure that I'll be able to do this justice on today's program, but let me just begin to start dealing with this. Here in Genesis chapter 44, and in verse 9 it says, this is the 11 brothers talking, it says, "With whosoever thy servants it be found," talking about this cup of Joseph, "let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondmen." And he, the steward of Joseph's house, said, "Now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my servant, and he shall be blameless." And they speedily took down every man his sack to the ground, opened every man his sack, and he searched and began at the eldest and left at the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they rent their clothes, which of course back in those days was a way of showing extreme grief and sorrow. They rent their clothes and laded every man his ass and returned to the city. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, for he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto them, "What deed is this that ye have done? Wot ye not that such a man as I can certainly divine?" In other words, certainly discern that my cup was missing. And Judah said, "What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak, or how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants," talking about slaves, "both we and he also with whom the cup is found." And he goes on and makes quite a confession here. And this is really a point that I want to center up on. So I'm not going to be able to get into it because we're out of time today. But this is amazing. He said, "Our iniquity had found us out." In other words, you know, what we did to our younger brother, the things that we've done. Judah had committed incest. Reuben had committed incest. Simeon and Levi had murdered hundreds of men. It's finally catching up with us. God is holding us accountable. And they began to repent. It had been 22 years since Joseph had had these dreams. And it was longer than that. It was before that time when they actually murdered these people in the town of Shechem. And here they are finally coming to repentance. I'm out of time, but again, let me mention our products on Joseph. This is a little brief summary of the life of Joseph that is a free gift to you. And then we have USBs and CDs and DVDs, not only on Joseph, but also lessons from David and lessons from Elijah. Listen to our announcer as he gives you this information, and please call or write today.
Andrew is offering his booklet, Lessons from Joseph, as his free gift to you today. This offer is limited to one free booklet per household and is available in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Contact us today to receive your free booklet. Andrew's complete series, Lessons from Joseph, is available in either a CD or DVD album or as a USB made from our daily television broadcast. Each of these valuable resources is available for a gift of any amount when you contact us. This entire series is also available for audio download, absolutely free from our website. Or you can get these products as part of the lessons package in your choice of either CD, DVD, or USB from Lessons from Joseph, Lessons from David, and Lessons from Elijah. Also, this package will include the Lessons from Joseph booklet. These teachings will give you the chance to learn from the successes and mistakes of 3 very powerful but very human men of God. The lessons package has a catalog value of $110, but you can receive all these valuable resources today for just $80. Go to awmi.net to see all the ways you can get these products. We also want to remind you of Andrew's Living Commentary software. The Living Commentary includes more than 50 years of Andrew's Bible study notes and personal encounters with God. Get Andrew's Living Commentary today for $120. You can also order resources or receive prayer by calling our helpline at 719-635-1111. We appreciate your generosity and hope to hear from you today.
I want this ministry to prosper, and I want it to go as far as possible.
So for me, being a partner is partaking in the blessings as well as giving support to people to tell them that we're behind them and we want to be part of what they're doing.
It's just awesome to be able to put good seed in good ground.
And every blessing of Andrew's, we feel and know that it's a blessing of ours.
I want to let all of our English-speaking audience know that we are beginning broadcast in Spanish, and I believe that this is going to be a deal changer for many people. We've had a huge response to the English program, and this is our first time to really be broadcasting in Spanish like this, and we need people to help us. If you would like to help us establish this ministry to the Spanish-speaking world, there will be information on the screen. Join with us and help us start the Spanish-speaking broadcast of the Gospel Truth program.
You were created with a purpose, written in the heart of God, long before you were born. He is calling you to find it. You were born for such a time as this, to be a disciple, to leave this world behind and follow Him. You were designed for a destiny, one that only you can fulfill.
Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the ends of the world.
We want to help you to know God, experience His unconditional love, to be equipped and empowered to become a world changer.